the attempt to gaslight the entire country. You don't just change the story, you get the person who's supposed to be investigating you to change the story for you, and then go on Sky News and tell everybody. We have a minister on camera, Robert Jenrick, bragging in 2022 that he was the one ramping up the migrant hotel contracts. His words, his policy, his proud achievement at the time. Now, fast forward to today and the bill is astronomical. The policy is a disaster and suddenly it was all an unavoidable accident, a force of nature. COVID did it, the war did it. It was never envisioned. This is a political pivot, but the real story isn't the pivot itself. It's the fact that the person pushing this new "it was an accident" narrative isn't just another minister trying to cover their tracks. It's the one person in Parliament whose entire job is to cut through the spin and find the facts. And that person is Dame Karen Bradley, a Conservative and a chair of the Home Affairs Select Committee. And this week she went on Sky News and explaining the entire hotel policy like it just happened to us. Contracts were written in 2019 and nobody could foresee COVID or the war in Ukraine. Have a watch.
But who are you pointing the finger at when it comes to the vast amount of waste, billions of pounds worth of waste that's being spent on asylum hotels?
So this report, which is, I suspect, the biggest report we're going to do as the Home Affairs Select Committee over this Parliament, it's a very extensive and thorough piece of work. And it was looking at the contractual arrangements that the Home Office has with the contractors and then subcontractors who provide the actual accommodation for asylum seekers. And I think this is a catalogue of things that have gone wrong, some of which were manageable, some of which were completely beyond anybody's control. So, for example, COVID, when these contracts were drawn up in 2019, nobody could have known that we would have a pandemic and that would have an impact on the asylum system in the way it did, meaning the use of hotels started in a way that was never envisaged when these contracts were first drawn up. The sheer numbers are much higher than anyone thought, but there has undoubtedly been a lack of control from officials at the Home Office on these contracts. Contract management has totally failed.
Nevertheless, any lawyer worth their salt knows about force majeure. If something happens that's out of their control and unpredictable, that goes in a contract. So wasn't that kind of thing in there?
Well, that's what was missing. These contracts were drawn up expecting far lower numbers of clients, as they call them, asylum seekers, and without knowing that there would be these major world shocks like COVID and the war in Ukraine and things that have happened in the Sahel that has seen far more people travelling from that region to trying to get to the United Kingdom and other parts of Europe. So I mean, it was a real failure that these contracts were not set up in a way that allowed for that flexibility.
It's a good story, plausible, unlucky. There's just one small problem. It's not true. Let's roll back to November 2022. Robert Jenrick, 8 days into his job, goes on Sky News and positively brags about hotel capacity.
But the fact that you, having just been in the job for a handful of days, are having to do this suggests that when Suella Braverman was asked in the House of Commons yesterday whether she herself had stopped the procurement of extra hotels and she denied that, well, that suggests that perhaps she wasn't being entirely truthful.
No, that's not correct. More hotels have been coming online almost every month throughout the whole of this year. So Suella Braverman and her predecessor, Priti Patel, were procuring more hotels. What I have done in my short tenure is ramp that up and procure even more, because November, historically, has been one of the highest months of the year for migrants illegally crossing the Channel.
That isn't reluctant crisis management. That is a minister taking a bow for expanding the hotel pipeline. It was a clear, active choice. So, which is it? In 2022, ministers ramped up hotels on purpose. In 2025, we're told it's an unavoidable accident of history. Same policy, two narratives. The story's just being changed depending on who's being blamed for it. Now, select committees, by the way, are often seen as the real opposition in Parliament. While the main chamber is dominated by party lines and soundbites, committees are where MPs cross-examine ministers, they dig into evidence, they hold departments to account. They're designed to be non-partisan and evidence-led, with the members from all parties working together to produce reports that often embarrass the government or expose weakness in policy. A good example of this independence was the Privileges Committee investigation into Boris Johnson. Yes, it was chaired by Harriet Harman, who was Labour, but with a Conservative majority, and yet they still concluded that Johnson misled Parliament. That's the strength of a select committee system. It can deliver real scrutiny and accountability, even against political grain. And that's why exactly Bradley's comments matter. By blaming everything on COVID, by pretending the hotel policy was never a political choice, she's undermining the very role of chair. The point of these committees is to rise above the spin, not repeat it. So when the person leading the inquiry starts echoing Tory excuses, it makes a mockery of what the select committee is supposed to stand for. I mean, we can all be adults. You can argue the surge demanded contingency beds. That's fine. But you don't get to pretend ministers weren't choosing that lever and accelerating it. They were. We've got the evidence right there. So the question remains, can we trust this select committee to do its actual job? But then I don't expect the Tories to come up with credible answers anyway. At the moment, they're desperately trying to pinch Reform's playbook, which you can see in the video that's on screen now. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button, and I'll see you next time.